program,
Yes,
Dr.
thank you.
Ambrose.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Well, Doctor, let's also congratulate you. I did follow the ceremony, second year of Governor Peter Mbah's office yesterday, and I must congratulate you and all residents in Enugu of his governance under the leadership of Dr. Peter Mbah so far. Congratulations in that regard.
Thank you very much. It's worthy of congratulations.
Now let's get straight into the
trajectory.
Let's get straight into the conversation, headlining stories this morning. There have been reactions to the scorecard as put out by the APC on the 2 years of the Renewed Hope agenda. The opposition is saying that some of the highlights and milestones recorded by the administration does not entirely reflect the amount of hardship and insecurity bedeviling Nigerians. Notably, the Afenifere, Labour under its umbrellas of NLC and TUC, and former VP Atiku Abubakar have been the most vocal about their displeasure on the APC's scorecard and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's performance in the last 2 years. What do you make of this development?
Well, I must say that I'm totally disappointed at the lethargy and state of inertia of the opposition parties, as well as the pressure groups and civil society organizations in tackling the government, holding the government, the federal government accountable. They have all gone to sleep. Apart from once in a while press release from Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar, they are not really, doing their job as opposition. They don't need to wait till May 29th for them to start tackling the government on indices and success stories that they are banding around, or on particular figures. For example, the federal government had a field day churning out statistics that only exist on papers. Every statistic that does not translate to impacting on the common man on the street, and the common man feeling that the prices of goods are coming down, that inflations are reducing, and all those things, then it has not translated to anything meaningful for the citizens. And these are the things we expect the opposition to be doing on day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, month-to-month basis. You tackle the government. When the finance minister comes to say something, you have a team of experts that will go and dismantle these statistics, or look into it and come up with positive criticisms. The same thing with when the CBN governor comes and says, okay, they are doing this monetary review, they are doing this, they are increasing lending rates, they are doing all sorts of things. The same thing when the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics come with unemployment rate, or try to restructure the parameters for measuring poverty or unemployment. These are the things where the opposition, but they are not doing it. And coming on May 29th to just say things because the government said something, for me, it is just window dressing, and it is just playing to the gallery. As for the government, whatever they say they have done, well, they have a right to claim success because it's politics. But as we said, the electricity tariff is still high. Petrol cost is still high from what we used to know 2 years ago. House rents have blossomed. They have gone up. School fees have gone up. Food has gone up. So everything that we use as a citizen have all gone up. Yet the wage of the citizens have not gone up in commensuration to what the hyperinflation rate is saying. So it's all gloomy for most Nigerians. There are no indices to celebrate at all for most Nigerians. The federal government can churn out all the statistics they want and self-adulation and all those things, but for the citizens, it's still a far cry.
Now, Dr. Ambrose, a valid point you've raised that the opposition should not just wait till May 29 to reply government on its scorecard. About this time last year, take for instance, the former VP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, had come out to query why the government was going to dip his hand in the pension fund to fund over 5,000 kilometers of road. At the time, he received a reply from the coordinating minister of the economy. And this time around, the government, 48 hours to May 29 again, wrote to the National Assembly seeking an approval to borrow $21.5 billion and 757 billion naira pension bonds. Now, it brings us back to the question of the eyes on the contributory pension scheme as earlier raised by the former VP. Do you think that most times when these issues come to the fore, particularly on our borrowing and debt servicing, it almost feels as though there's no checkmating the amount of borrowing that the federal government does?
Yes, the federal government since the last 2 years have been on the borrowing spree. Unfortunately, most of the borrowings have been for inanities, for things that don't actually, they are not concrete, they are not for production, they are just for consumption. For example, borrowing money on multiple occasions from the World Bank to send to poor homes as palliatives. Who measures it? What are the metrics? What are the M&E, monitoring and evaluation parameters that are used to measure who got what and who didn't get? And so these are frivolities. Federal government has been borrowing for frivolities, not for. We are looking at federal government borrowing money to have, to have serious infrastructure that will boom, that will blossom the economy. But that is not what we are seeing. So most of the money we borrow are frittered away. I mean, when you say that you are giving 50,000 naira to poor households and you are giving 50 million households and that, so who follows it up? So what I expect the opposition to do, what I expect Chief Alhaji Abubakar to Atiku Abubakar to do, and Mr. P2P and the rest people that are opposition, is to set out what we call a crack team of monitoring and evaluation experts, as well as forensic experts, as well as financial experts, who can follow the, for example, the last tranche of monies that were borrowed by the federal government. What did they use it for? Who is tracking it? So by now, I expected the opposition to have case-by-case basis and tear down these things so that Nigerians can know, so that they can expose it. So, but now they are not doing anything. They just come, make comments like any other Nigerian, and then they go to sleep again, and just to feign a kind of relevance. That is not how to run opposition. And opposition should be proactive, not reactive. Most of the time, you just wait for government to announce something, then you do a press release, and that is all. No, there should be a team that is actually monitoring what the government is doing as an alternative to what the ruling party is doing at the center. But that is not happening. And therefore, that is what emboldens the government to just borrow, to buy yachts, to build a vice presidential lodge, to carry delegation of over 1,000 people to a conference, a world conference, all kinds of frivolities. So, but if that doesn't exist, then we cannot see how to channel money. We borrow money to build industries. We borrow money to, for example, borrow money to get alternatives for, transportation, to get alternatives for health, to fund education, to fund research, to fund production. But that is not what we are doing. What we are doing, we are borrowing money for consumption. And these consumptions are not totally, transparent. Because when you say you are giving money to households, who is monitoring the households? What is the statistics? So the opposition should wake up. I mean, we still have 2 years to go in this tenure. The opposition should re-strategize, because the current strategy they are deploying is not giving results.
Now, there are some areas the president says that they have strong facts to back the claim that they have bettered the economy. Speaking to some policies under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, like the students' loan scheme, which they say over 300,000 students have benefited from, and the consumer credit scheme that has also benefited over 900,000 people. Are there some measurable outreaches in terms of its impact on bettering the lives of a selected few?
Well, one of the, what I'll call success stories, and, what I'll credit this government for doing the last 2 years is the, introduction of the students' loan. And it's a good development. That will help a lot of students. And I hope that the people who are deploying the fund are monitoring, because we are hearing stories of how some heads of higher institutions like the vice chancellors, the rectors, and some people are trying to, pilfer the money. So the NEL fund also should be able to put some parameters in place to ensure that the monies get to the student. So by and large, it's a good effort that they are thinking along that line, so that students are not trapped in the web of not being able to fund their tertiary education. So that is a good one. But the other one of the other one is not measurable.
The consumer credit scheme.
The issue of yes, it's just like the trader money thing that the former president did, Buhari's government, where it's a trader money. Who did you give the money to? So anybody can come out with a whole list of statistics and say, oh, these people benefited. How do we track the people? Does the opposition have what it takes to track the people? So these are the things we are talking about. So if you track the people and we know that these people got it, then we can, but anybody can come up with a list. And so we have done this. And then you can come out, reports can be fabricated. So, but because there's no, concrete evidence in all this. And that is why a lot of Nigerians are still doubting if those things are truly what they're supposed to be. And is it really sustainable? Can you build an economy by just gifting people money in the name of credit loan? What are the parameters for them paying back? What are the business sources? We have been doing the same thing over and over again. Yet we expect a different result. No, so we can't get different results. So we have banks like BOI, the Bank of Industry. We have a SME fund. We have all kinds of funding for the SMEs. So why didn't you channel it there? We need technical vocation, education, and all those things. Why did you channel it there? So why give credit scheme that we cannot even track? That is the problem. So we need to look at the macro level where we can really, really think of how to make this country a production nation, rather than gifting money. You use the money to go and import things. You need the money to go. Almost everything we use are imported, from the clothes we are wearing to the toothbrush we are using, to toothpick, to tissue papers, to cars, to everything. By now, I thought there would have been a kind of policy that will ensure that only Nigerian cars are used by government officials and the rest. But we still import cars from China, from Japan, from America, from different parts of the, even at the public official level. So these are the things that bring down economy. If you check how much governments have used to purchase cars that were imported, you will cringe. And this is not how to grow an economy. So you cannot be gifting money for us to be using to buy imported products. In that cyclical poverty we are creating.
Now, Dr. Ambrose, let's also talk about the development commissions, because it's part of the scorecard achievements. The presidency said that President Tinubu ought to be applauded for the 4 commissions that have been birthed under his administration in terms of being able to deliver the dividends of democracy to those regions. What do you make of this statement?
Well, the signing into law of various, I think there are 4, 5 of those. All we had before was the Niger Delta Development Commission. So now we have the Southeast, we have this, Southwest, we have Northeast. So all the development commissions are there. But the first question is, what are these commissions doing? What did the NDDC achieve over the years? These are the questions we need to ask. Do we just keep replicating? So the TOR, the terms of reference, setting up this development commissions needs to be really, really analyzed so that we can know what they stand for. So they are supposed to stand for regional integration. They are supposed to stand for regional development. For example, in the Southeast where I am, we don't have a rail line connecting the 5 states of the Southeast. We are supposed to have a rail line discussed with the North Central Development Commission so that we can have a rail line running from the Southeast, ringing out, and with a spur from Enugu to Kogi and Benue, and then we can connect the one to Abuja, and then connect it to the one going to Kaduna. But these are the big lofty things that we should be talking about when it comes to the development commissions, and then the roads, So, but so far, I will commend President Tinubu for having that political will and capacity to sign these development commissions into law. It's a plus for his administration. Well, again, most of them have not been funded, so I don't know what is delaying it after months of setting them up and inaugurating the members. So they should be funded, and then the funding should be made available to the people of the region. It should be very, very transparent, so that we can track them and know what they are using this money for. It's not a settlement for the boys or the political patronage. It should be for serious development, as the name implies, development commissions.
Now, on the wage package of workers, the APC saying that Nigerians ought to appreciate the president for improving upon the minimum wage despite years of advocacy for this. It's been finally approved under him, 70,000 naira. But Labour, under NLC and TUC, have argued in the opposite, that it does not shift the needle in terms of the actual dollar equivalent of the 70,000 naira, with reference that some states are yet to even adopt the payment of the agreed 70,000 naira. What's your opinion in that regard?
It's unfortunate that the Nigerian working class is one of the most derided in the country. They are not encouraged. They suffer. They receive pittance. And even most of them, after working for 35 years and time for retirement, when it is even time to collect their gratuity, pensions, and the rest, they are treated as, outcasts. Meanwhile, somebody that just goes to be governor for 8 years, or is in the House of Reps or whatever, and he gets all the big, humongous package just for serving for 8 years, while somebody who served for 35 years gets basically nothing. When you talk about 70,000, what's the value of 70,000? I give examples. Okay, I grew up in Warri with my uncle, who worked in the DSC, Delta State Company, Alaja. And I noticed something, and the pay was not too fantastic, but I noticed that they were being paid living wage, not minimum wage. Now, because basically most of the welfare that they needed to spend money on had been taken care of. And the Delta State Company, Alaja, those days, the workers don't pay for transportation. There are buses that take them to work. For those who have car, they have a fuel dump where you go to fill your tank a particular quantum of fuel every Monday. Now, they have housing estates that are even bigger, that are much more in number than the staff there. So most staff, in fact, virtually every staff, had a house, was not paying house rent. They had a hospital. They were not paying for hospital bills. They had schools, like 4 schools, where children of the staff attend free of charge. The water was not being paid for. Electricity was not being paid for. That was catered for by the company. I'm talking about Nigeria. Worry there. I'm not talking about the United States of America or UK. Now, when you aggregate these welfare packages, these are the things that cost a lot of money now that the Nigerian worker has to spend on. But those days, these people didn't pay for any of those things. Therefore, anything you paid them was just merely something for their food, for their sustenance. The other things have been taken care of. I think that is what the NLC should be trying to bring back. We also have all over the country, scattered all over the country, railways. Today, there are physical evidence of railway quarters all across the country. My own father worked in Nigeria Sugar Company in Bashita, Kwara State, and the same thing applied. Most of the staff, almost 90% of the real estate in that area was built by Nigeria Sugar Company, which is another federal government company. So what we are now saying is that the NLC should rather be valued. What are you giving the Nigerian worker? Okay, we are talking about the pension, and some people are even trying to dip their hands into the pension. So if you dip your hand into the pension fund and you are not able to pay back, what happens? So these are the things we are talking. Yeah, pension fund is idle fund for some time. Do we trust this government to actually invest them properly so that they can get the money and pay interest to the people who have these pension funds contributed? So these are the questions. Or will it be frittered away and there's nothing to, when you retire, you have nothing to gain? The NLC has been weak recently, very, very weak in the last 3, 4, 5 years. So they just come to the newspapers, make some noise. They have not really fought for the workers, because I don't see why a minimum wage will be 70,000 and the worker cannot even, imagine you pay transport from that 70,000, have family to take care of. It's not taken care of medically. It's not anything. So most Nigerian workers are working, but they are actually underemployed. And the labor just comes, make TV appearances and go home. That is not how to do. They should tackle the government more. Make sure, we all remember the days of Adams Oshomole for the younger ones. And then let's not talk about the old, labor leaders who did us very proud. But even as recent as Adams Oshomole, that is how he came into limelight. The way he did his things there. So, but this time we'll have people who are just sitting sitting there and nothing is happening. Do press conferences, sing solidarity songs, and go home. Nigerian workers are suffering, and this government has not done anything to ameliorate or to soften their suffering. In fact, it has doubled because of the hyperinflation. The hyperinflation is 17 naira, and there's a hyperinflation of more than 300 or 500%. So when Nigeria Bureau of Statistics come and say, oh, there's inflation of 30-something%, I say, what kind of mathematics is that? When we go to the pragmatic mathematics, see somebody going to the market, a bag of rice was 25,000. Now he's selling for 80,000. Before, things that were, just 10,000 are selling so much, 400, 500% increase. And somebody is telling me that it's 30-something percent inflation. So whatever calculation you are meeting is not tallying with the reality on ground. And that is what the late Pope Francis used to call voodoo economy.
Now, Dr. The debate that have been going on since we began this meet performance assessment is that the president was fighting for local government autonomy, and following the subsidy removal also translated that in
I can't hear you.
To states. I don't know if you can hear me. Hello, Dr. Ambrose, can you hear me?
I can't hear you from here.
All right. Is the conversation on local government autonomy and increased allocation? 2 years down the line, the government reportedly saved 18 trillion naira. This hasn't really translated.
No, I couldn't hear you. Please, can you repeat?
I'll take that. Increased FAC allocation to states and post-subsidy removal, the 18 trillion naira that has been saved by the federal government. Many say that the state governors share a bulk of this blame because they have not allowed for the autonomy of local governments, and the increased FAC allocation has not directly translated into improved living conditions and quality of life for the federating states. I don't know what your position on this is.
Yeah, we agree on that, but the federal government should not shift his own responsibilities, because when we come to the sharing formula, it is the federal government that has a lion's share. We have 36 federating states. They share less than the federal government, and even the 774 local governments. So the federal government has a lion's share, and they should focus on the responsibilities that have been given. Let the subnational citizens of the subnationals, tackle their state governors. But federal government is used to saying this kind of thing to shift the blame game. For the subnationals and the states, the federal government should do us some favor. One, I think during the time of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Minister for Coordinating Ministers of the Economy and Finance Minister, she was doing that. But I don't think that is being done now. I think we should reintroduce it if it's not being done. Every month, it is not enough to say, oh, the federal government got so amount and the states got the local government got. No. I think there should be a spreadsheet every month published in the newspapers. Once the states and the local government get their allocation, the Minister for Finance or the Minister for the Economy, or whoever is responsible for that for that duty, should be able to publish in national newspapers, at least 3, on a monthly basis, how much has been released to each state, how much has been released to each local government. In this way, the subnationals of the cities of the subnational can now hold their governors accountable, because they now know how much is coming there. Now, what is the point of removing subsidies? What is the point of removing subsidy in the petroleum products, removing subsidy in electricity, floating the naira, and causing all these economic earthquakes, when you still save the same money is gotten, and then you transfer it again to subnationals for spending? Spending for what? That's what is causing this hyperinflation. Why not back down on this subsidy removal and electricity and petroleum products? When you do that, then you can say that the prices of things will come down, because even now, with all the monies available to the states, there's a hyperinflation. Some of the states have even refused to do minimum wage. Who is holding them responsible? Some people don't even know how much the states are earning. So it is high time we started publishing those things and then publish each amount that is given to every subnational and the local government. And then that is when the federal government can now urge their states to start, holding their own public officers accountable. Money is being made available, but the impact is not being felt in many states, apart from few states that can now do without FAC. I think Lagos, Enugu, and and River States. I think those are the three states that in this country that can survive without a federal government allocation on a monthly basis. The other 33 states, what are they doing? So these are things we need to look at and ensure that we tackle these issues before the next year's anniversary.
Now, Dr. Ambrose, you also mentioned some of the modalities that ought to have been put in place before subsidy was removed, owing to the promise of CNG. The adoption of the Presidential Compressed Gas Initiative is quite slow and hasn't translated into the alternative that was purported to be once subsidy was removed. How do the states also share some responsibility in this?
Well, it is the federal government's doorstep that those policies are made, not the states. So the states cannot be roped into this. On the May 29, 2023, on the acceptance speech of the then newly inaugurated President Bola Tinubu, just in one line, subsidy is gone. And under few hours, the whole country turned upside down. No plans, no metrics put in place, no alternatives, no gradation of the process, just one line of announcement. And that is not, for me, that is not planning. Because before you remove a very important element of your economy like subsidy of petroleum products, you need to put some, measures in place. So, because you know that it will lead to spiraling inflation, cost of living, and the rest. And because we are a society powered by mostly petrol and diesel in energy provisions, the government was supposed to have put that in check. First of all, you are supposed to have put alternatives in place. So if you say you are doing CNG, you are supposed to have that on ground. You are supposed to have the refineries working. So because this issue of subsidy comes on because you export for the petrol that is supposed to be used as local consumption, that was supposed to be refined in Nigeria, is being exported out, then refined and brought in. So we spend dollars to export petrol products that we are supposed to use locally. We export them, spending foreign currency. We bring them in, we refine them, pay for refined products using Forex, and bring them back to the country using Forex. There's something wrong with us. There's something absolutely wrong with us in Nigeria. And then when we bring it back, what we now do, we now start talking about international pricing of refined products. We are even shameless about it. That is one of the very unfortunate thing. We are so shameless about it. While if we can build refineries 60, 50 years ago, then in the tune of 2025, we are talking about importing products. Till today, we still import refined products. And then, fretting away our money that we are supposed to use for development. So there was no excuse. That is why to subsidize, to cushion the effect of using Forex to import and process all those things that we use for local consumption. That is why subsidy came in the first place. So you don't treat a problem by tackling the symptoms. You go to the root cause. And the root cause of this is that our refineries stopped working. So the first thing was to fix the refineries, ensure that refineries are working, remove all the obstacles that are making cottage refineries not work, and then ensure that these things are put in place so that we have enough refining capacity. Then we'll not be talking about subsidy anymore. It will die naturally. But we didn't do that. So we kept on going round and round, and causing all the kind of economic somersaults we are doing. And here we are today, still grappling with the same thing after 2 years.
Now, Dr. Ambrose, on the issues of policy governments to level the playing field in the upstream, a new report making the rounds is that the federal government has issued a new executive order to lower the cost in the upstream sector. They have also talked about the fact that deal to also help in our over-dependence on oil or petroleum importation to feed our domestic needs. What do you make of this policy directions by the federal government in terms of ameliorating some of the challenges in our upstream sector?
The federal government is good at issuing statements and white papers, and then I do not believe anything anymore. A lot of Nigerians do not believe a lot of these things said. These things are said in workshops, in retreats, papers are issued. Once it does not translate that the cost of fuel has come down to, petrol has come down to 100 naira or 80 naira, it means nothing to the Nigerian citizen. All these statements being issued by the federal government means nothing to the Nigerian citizen unless it translates to concrete economic empowerment for the Nigerian citizen. The way the government is behaving as if it is a capitalist venture. The federal government of a country is not a capitalist venture. It's not a corporate entity. It is government. And constitutionally, the government, they said our own constitution said that the primary responsibility of government is the security and welfare of the citizens. So where is the welfare? If you throw away the welfarist aspect of governance, then you're not a government, then you're a company. And so the government should remember that always when they're taking some certain decisions, because all the decisions taken are pure capitalist decisions. Though we know the word is capitalist, but there's no capitalism without welfare. If you go to the United States, they're subsidizing a lot of things. Go to Europe, a lot of things are subsidized. Go to China and other places, they subsidize the electricity. They even subsidize their farmers. They subsidize their industries so that they can compete fairly, so that the pricing war, an international pricing war, can favor their people. So that because when you spend less in production, because government has supported you, you can sell your goods cheaper in international market. So while other countries are doing trade wars, subsidizing their farmers, subsidizing. In fact, I say that America subsidizes laziness. Because you reach a certain age, or you a single mother who just got pregnant. That's why a lot of teenagers are having pregnancy in America, because the child who is born is the citizen of the state. And the state takes care of the child.
Dr. Ambrose, on this comparison between Nigeria and America, on this comparison between Nigeria and America, the current presidency under His Excellency Donald Trump has also imposed a ban on foreign tertiary admission seekers into state-owned universities, and this is also affecting Nigerians who before now are seeking admission into universities there. So in this comparison, do we need policies like that?
Well, America is, imagine how much, when I saw the amount of money that Harvard University was receiving from the American government intervention, $3 billion. How much do our schools, university here receive from federal government for research interventions? How much are lecturers paid here? So what we are saying that if we want to compare, let's do the proper comparison. Let's compare the education system. Why are people going to America is the first question you should ask.
Doctor, just hold your thoughts. We'll reconnect with you shortly to extend the time of the conversation. When you come back, I'll keep you abreast with the next point of conversation. Kindly reconnect so that we can pick up from where you left off.
All right.
Well, Dr. Ambrose Igboke is the chairman, Guild of Public Affairs Analysts in Enugu. Quite vehement opinions he's holding on the program this morning, but we also do apologize for certain choice of words in his bid to express his thoughts on the program. We always approach this conversation from an angle of civility. We urge that our respondents and those joining online express civility while looking to land their points. No calling, no inciting comments when you look to do so. Well, our next talking point is quite a shift in the leadership of the African Development Bank. For the last decade, it was under the stewardship of King Adeshina as AFDB. But yesterday, at an annual meeting in Abidjan, Sedi Ould Tar who was elected. We'll look at the fine margins in this election. The infographics greeting your screen showing the 4 candidates that were in the running for the pole position of AFDB president saw him emerge with the most number of votes. CD emerged with a total number of votes of 48.41%. His closest contender was Mr. Samuel from Zambia, who polled 36.8%. And then there was a wide margin between these two contenders. The next two persons were South Africa's Swazi. She polled 5.90%, and while we had Mr. Hoot from Senegal with 9.20%. It was quite followed quite heatedly, and upon his emergence, tributes have been pouring for Dr. Sadi Ould Tah. Look at his credentials, shows that he has 35 years of experience in African and international finance. The results were announced by Niale Kaba, the Minister of Planning and Development for Côte d'Ivoire and Chairman Board of Governors of the Bank Group. While addressing the Bank Governors Group and the media shortly, we would also look at some of the images coming in from Mr. Tah's address. Well, it is important to note that he says it is indeed time to better the African polity. The AFDB, particularly to Nigeria, intervened in key areas. This morning as well, following his emergence, there's a dedication to partner Kogi State to broaden development. It's more on the liberation of Africa and funds for entrepreneurs to be in fields. And whilst we wait for Dr. Ambrose to rejoin, we'll take a look at that visual coming in following Dr. Sadi Ould Tah's emergence yesterday as AFDB president.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les gouverneurs suppléants, administrateurs, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est avec beaucoup d'humilité et de sens de responsabilité que je m'adresse à vous en ce moment particulier. Je voudrais d'abord remercier l'Afrique pour la confiance qu'elle vient de m'accorder. Je vous remercie, vous, Mesdames et Messieurs les gouverneurs, pour cette confiance.
Speech following his emergence following the conclusion of elections yesterday did promise accelerated economic growth across African states. Now, the AFDB Bank also has promised to deepen its ties with Kogi State government in Nigeria, especially in the areas of transformative projects that will drive the state's economic development over the course of his mandate and lay the foundation for long-term growth. Well, this disclosure was made by the top officials of the Development Bank who met with the governor of the state, Ahmed Ododo, on the sidelines of the annual general meeting of the bank, which took place in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. The management of the bank, led by the Senior Special Advisor on Industrialization to President Oyebanje Oyeyinka and the AFDB Director General, Dr. Abdul Kamara, lauded the governor for his proactive engagement with the bank and promised that the bank will assist him in developing the state, especially in the provision of economic interventions. Now, it's also important to note that in the last 10 years on the Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the FDB had strategic interventions in providing access to fund for Nigeria and other African countries, particularly with a drive towards rural electrification. Now many eyes are on the saddle following the emergence of the new president, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah from Mauritania, and what changes he would bring to the FDB, much different from those experienced on the Akinwumi Adesina. Now, this is going to be one of those historic moments, and whilst tributes are pouring in from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and ex-President Muhammadu Buhari, many economics would converge in a few days to chart the course in terms of the expectations and projections under the stewardship of Dr. Sidi, of Public Affairs Analysts in Enugu. Well, Doctor, welcome back to the conversation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Just before the break, we're looking at the emergence of a new AFDB president with the news that the board of the African Development Bank has approved country paper, 5-year country paper for Nigeria spanning 2025 to 2030 with a reported $650 million budgeted to bring about economic improvements in Nigeria. What do you make of his emergence and the stewardship of the outgoing president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina?
Well, firstly, when I hear that money is coming to Nigeria, I'm not usually excited, or especially international multilateral agencies, because we have had so much money in the past. What did we use it for? So usually I'm not excited when I hear about this, unless there's going to be a paradigm shift. Perhaps it can start to have economic impact for us. Mr. Femi Adesina is a Nigerian star. Is somebody that has made the country very proud in discharge of his international duties. I'm so happy for how he has represented the country, how he has represented himself. We always knew that many Nigerians didn't know him until he became the Minister for Agriculture under President, I think, Goodluck Jonathan. And his activities as a Minister for Agriculture set him apart. There was a lot of innovations he brought into agriculture. Before he became minister, we thought that the distribution of fertilizers was something that is from the mass. We thought it was the distribution chain was a scientific calculus that cannot be solved by Nigerians. But we saw the way Mr. Adesina came and broke that jinx, and fertilizers were going to the farmers directly. And he used a very simple method. He made them have mobile phones, small mobile phones that were not even connected to the internet. Just normal phones that are not powered by Android or iOS, just normal. And then they had a database of farmers, collected from around the country. And your fertilizer, where it is, and where you can pick them up with your code and everything, is sent to you directly on your phone, and you go pick it up. Cutting out the middlemen who were making a lot of gains from fertilizer reselling to farmers and making things exorbitant. That was cut off. Unfortunately for Nigeria, as usually the case with us, that wonderful process was discontinued after he left office. It was not followed. Today we are back to square one. So the lack of continuity, lack of sustainable practice by this country has kept us where we are. Look at how he went out there and then he became a star. And one of the things I hold as a plus for the Buhari administration is the fact that when it was time to renew the leadership of Mr. Femi Adesina, he went ahead and made sure it was renewed, despite the fact that he was appointed by a PDP president. For a very long while, I saw that politics did not come to play, but the interests of Nigeria. So that was one of the plus, actions that I, hold for President Buhari. And Femi Adesina has done well. It took AFDB to a very high level. And I hope that his successor will be able to maintain that tempo. And Femi was also very lucky that, we had our sister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, at various points at the World Bank and then also at the World Trade Organization. They worked closely, and he really, really used that, interaction and closeness to get a lot of things for the AFDB. AFDB was consolidated under his watch, and his impact in Africa was more felt in the last 10 years that he was there. So it is time for Nigeria. Nigeria should not allow the international community to snatch him away from us. Nigeria should not allow Mr. Adesina for the Brentwood institutions to take him over. it is time we need to start using people like that kind of brain. So I hope that the President Bola Tinubu administration will find a very critical role for him to play for Nigeria as he's now done his tenures at the AFDB.
All right, Doctor, let's bring it back home to some other issues affecting our national polity. In Enugu State, there was the post-election petition tribunal, the appeal court, looking at the case of Governor Pebelo versus Ighodalo. Now, the appeal court has given judgment reaffirming the election of Governor Pebelo. This morning, the governor is cautioning Ighodalo on what he calls an abuse of court process, as Mr. Ighodalo is adamant to take the issue to the Supreme Court. What's your say in the developments in the Edo State's post-election matter?
I must commend Nigerian politicians. I said one of the things I commend about them in the last, let me say, the last 15 years or so, is the ability to ventilate their grievances in legal process rather than resorting to violence. That is a great advantage we have in our polity. Otherwise, it could have been terrible. It could have been very, very terrible if Nigerians were treated with violence. We remember the famous statement that baboons will be soaked in blood and all those things that were incendiary statement made by politicians those days. But today we find that even despite the issues, despite the anger, despite the threats of non-inclusions or accusations of INEC or accusations of other political parties, our politicians recently, we always tell their supporters that they will go to court. That is a very beautiful development for our democracy. Then when it comes to Edo's case was very, very charged. Remember activities leading to the election, it was a charged atmosphere. And people were afraid, looking at whether there will be violence. But pre-election, there was no violence. Post-election, there was no violence. So I must commend Ighodalo for seeking the path of a legal process. And he has a right to go to court. He has exercised that right. Tribunal has done his own. Appeal court is done. He has said he will go to the Supreme Court, and we pray that the Supreme Court we also look at the matters and be able to give judgments as because most of the time, the problem is that we always say, this thing didn't go well, but the Supreme Court always act with the evidence and the exhibits they have before them, not from hearsay. Sometimes the prosecution of people who lost the election may not be diligent in prosecuting the matter. The judiciary can redeem itself by giving sound judgment so that people will not be viewing their every judgment made by the judiciary as something that is tainted. So it's a good development. Let him go to the Supreme Court and let the court have their say.
Now, in closing, Doctor, would look at an issue that affects the human lives, and it's been from the criticism that we have received as a people, not just government, but also people who dwell in communities that are prone to natural disaster, in terms of our emergency response and disaster management. Now, this morning, the sad news coming in from Niger State is that following massive floods, a family has lost 12 of its members, while the community is yet to account for 50 persons who are reportedly missing. Each year, we have flood alerts alerting persons who are in such communities on the need to somewhat find alternatives. And in terms of the agencies saddled with this, it's been about a perennial issue year in, year out. We continue to discuss the number of lives lost owing to floods. What can we do differently?
When you live in Nigeria, your security largely depends on divine intervention. It is not dependent on government response. Because what we have is that, the normal circumstances, community circumstances and all those things, that even normal security for citizens are not even very, very, proactive. Talk less of emergencies. Nigeria. We are just lucky in this country that we don't have critical emergencies like earthquake, like cyclone, like volcanic eruptions, and all those things. We are just lucky. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble. Imagine that earthquake. Nigeria is earthquake prone. What would have done with ourselves? But we are very lucky that we are not there. So the emergency response in Nigeria is virtually zero. It doesn't exist. We look at persistently, and it has been happening. For example, when every year the Ogun River Basin always releases water that makes nonsense of the whole of Ogun Axis, Isheri, Ikorodu, all those area of Ogun State and Lagos. We remember the River Benue, River Niger. Almost every year they overflowing to submerge major states, sometimes 12 states in Nigeria. And it's almost a yearly occurrence. There's a part of the year where you want to pass through Lokoja, you cannot be passed through. Houses are submerged. This is been happening year in, year out, running 50 years, and we are not doing anything about it.
But Doctor, there's been provision of ecological funds. There have been provisions of ecological funds. There have been conversations on the need for us to build a counter dam to combat the waters released from the Lagdo Dam and the Ogun Axis, much like you just said. How do we ensure that these monies are channeled towards the purposes that they're intended for?
Well, I don't know what else to say. That even the people, Minister for Environment, for example, there's a Minister for Disaster and all those. What are they doing? I mean, the president. I don't know why president should have a minister in charge of those kind of things in his cabinet, and this kind of things are happening, and the person is not fired. So it's either the president did not provide the fund for this, or the other way around is that we don't even care for our citizens. Because if it is a one-off occurrence and an emergency, you could say something, but it is not something that you expect that will happen every year. You actually see it happening. You know that it will happen. And there are no this is just tell people, oh, move around. Look at the volcanic eruption, the ash and all those water that was spilled, I think in a country, in Sweden, one village. Really. Nobody was killed. Why? Because the seismic this thing has been read, people have been evacuated a week or so before it happened, and nothing happened. Just say one person is missing. If that has happened in Nigeria, we would have had thousands of casualties. The value of life in Nigeria is very, very abysmal, and that is why people keep dying every year from flood related issues, and then there's not. For now, the only major natural disaster we have is just flood. We don't have wildfire, we don't have earthquake, we don't have volcanic eruption. Yet we cannot tackle flood, and these flood things are just as you said. When that dam was built in Cameroon, we were supposed to build an alternative that will take in the water. We refused. How many years on? Going to 50 years, we refuse to do anything. Yet our people have been money is being quoted for ecological fund, all those things. So I think climate change, pressure groups, civil society organizations, and the rest should start making some, agitations and taking government accountable, and holding government responsible for these deaths that we are recording.
Well, Doctor, time, I'm afraid, is not our friend, but we must appreciate you for taking our time to lend your thoughts and voice to the conversation making the rounds this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me on the show this morning. It's my first time here, and I'm glad to be here.
Always a pleasure. We'd look to extend it beyond just being a first. Have a nice day.
Thank you.